sitting here with ROWA, an indie pop singer, songwriter, producer, and multi-instrumentalist based out of Los Angeles, California. ROWA, thank you for joining me.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Of course, I'd love to jump right into the new single Sweet Nothings, which came out February 15th. The beat is insane. That's the first thing I thought when I heard it.
Thank you
So
so much.
Yeah, of course. It's so haunting. Like everything that you do is very it's catchy and fun and pop, but it also sounds like you're walking through a bit of a haunted house.
That's cool. I haven't gotten that feedback from that track yet. So I do have tend to be a little more minor key, a little more.
Yeah. Where where does that inspiration stem from, do you think?
Um, I feel like ever since I started writing music, I've always kind of enjoyed more of the minor key flair. And I used to have a folk band with my best friend. It was called Witch's Brew, and we made very like spooky,
Mm-hmm.
witchy, like string band music. Um, so yeah, it's kind of just like always the direction I've kind of gone in, like kind of working more in like the shadow realms, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but it's been fun recently, like experimenting with like being like, okay, I'm gonna make like a major key, like feel good pop track. Like, let's see what that's like, you know? So it's kind of like taboo for me to like go into a more like feel good, fun
Yeah.
direction, but it's cool.
Do you think you'll ever drop a track that's just like nothing but major key happy songs?
Yeah, I have this one house track that I'm working on that I produced and my friend Life on Planets just did a verse on. He's local to LA too, super cool house artist. And yeah, it's like very like feel good like house track. Like it's it's very different, but
Yeah.
very marketable, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, giving the people what they want. Uh,
Yeah.
when it comes to stuff like that, um, does it feel, I know some artists can feel like it's a little hard to get out of their comfort zone, do something they're not quite used to. Uh, was it hard for you to maybe get yourself into that mindset, or did it just feel like another side of you that you're exploring?
I kind of yeah, I feel like a lot of like my best songs that I write just stem from like experimentation. Um I think I was like trying to work on like another track with like another collab or something, but then I just like found, just found a keyboard plugin and then was just messing around. Then all of a sudden just like I'm like, oh, this sounds really good, you know? And it was all major key. And yeah, so it's not like I was really like pushing myself to do it necessarily, but it just a lot of my like best stuff, I feel like it's just what like flows out in the moment. So it'll usually be like I'll write a song like a simple like bare bone like harmony part on like keyboard or guitar, and then it kind of just like all stems from there. But after I like kind of wrote the initial like keyboard part, I was like, okay, this is totally like feeling like super like pop, fun, good vibes, you know? So
Hmm.
I just ran with it. I was like, all right, let's just I'm making a feel good song. Let's go.
Yeah, let's roll with it. Yeah, you
Yeah,
don't question the universe sometimes when that pops into your head, even if it doesn't quite feel like the normal route you go down. You never know what you'll discover if you do follow that intuition.
totally.
So going back to Sweet Nothings, the new tune, what was the
Mhm.
writing and the recording process behind this song? Did it have anything different compared to your previous releases? Naughty Girl, anything like that?
So Sweet Nothings is actually a song that I wrote maybe like 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I had originally written it. to be recorded on a live studio album that was going to be recorded in New Orleans before I moved away from there. And I was like really putting a lot of like time and effort into writing that tune. And just like wanted to make it like a pretty like complex, like interesting song. From like the chord variations and the parts down to like what the lyrics were and stuff. And I even like wrote like the bass line parts and like really kind of got in. I like had like written all these like melody parts for like trumpet players to play. And then I was like writing, I was like kind of composing it in Berlin one summer. I like was considering moving to Berlin. And so I was spending like time there during the summers. And then I got back from Berlin and I had been clubbing a lot. So I was like, okay, I probably shouldn't move to Berlin. Like this doesn't really
It's
seem
dangerous.
realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got back to New Orleans and then I kind of realized that the person that was going to be privately funding the album project they were going to have like their hands in the pot like a little bit more than I like was really wanting for my career and for my music and myself because I'm just like very independent and obviously expressing our music and recording it and like having this final recording of something we've written is like kind of like this sacred thing. And so I kind of like last minute decided like that wasn't the move for me. I hadn't really like signed any contracts or anything. So
Hmm.
um I ended up like dropping that like deal to do the like studio album project. And I was like, all right, I gotta learn how to produce. Like I'm gonna do this myself. And so then I moved to LA. I went to school like this like program for Ableton software. It was like a 6 month long course in Los Angeles.
Hmm.
And then like pretty much COVID had hit after that. So it was kind of like it's been this long-winded process of me being like, okay, I don't want anybody else to kind of like be in control of my sound or my project, making the move to like learn the skills and then like COVID happening and just like also just getting my chops up with production to where I felt like, okay, like this is a song that I've like really put a lot of time and effort into. Like now I'm like have the skill sets to like actually produce it the way that I would like am somewhat hearing in my head. But it still like kind of took its own like path when I start producing it. But I'm definitely really happy with how it came out in the end.
Yeah. It's the old teach a man to fish situation. If you can learn how to produce on Ableton or any other DAW, then you don't really have to worry about going to somebody else to make it happen. And when that does happen, usually it does require some strings attached and that can be a
Yeah.
little frustrating, especially if you're an artist who does have a specific vision and doesn't want to have to rely on somebody else to get there, especially if they're putting money into it. And if they do, rightfully, it makes sense that they're going to have some opinions that you should take in if they're paying for it. But those strings are attached is not fun to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not. And um yeah, it's cool. Like now at like this point in my career, I've kind of like I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, definitely way more economical to just be like sitting on my computer doing all this stuff myself with my like synthesizer and just making it happen. But I have kind of started branching in with some new demos and like singles that I'm working on that I work with like session musicians more. So it's been cool. I've been kind of like rounding back to like what the initial vision was. But doing it in a way that kind of like makes a bit more sense, but I still have like all of the creative control. But I'll tend to like just like send a bass player like chord charts and be like, okay, these are the chord charts, but this is the inspiration vibe I'm going for, but like do your thing. And
Yeah.
So that's been really fun recently.
When you use session musicians, do you typically have a very specific vision for what you want them to do? Do you allow them to play around that, or is it pretty open ended and you kind of say like, "Hey, this is the vibe. You give me what you think would be cool," or does it depend on the project?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the part. And um yeah, basically this one demo that I'm working on, it's called Bad Side. And it I wrote it like because I was like, all right, I have this song, Sweet Nothings, and I have a lot of very eclectic type of music that's going to be coming out. So I loved genre blend. So I'm like, okay, I need to like kind of keep some things in the same realm still. So I wrote the song Bad Side, and it's like pretty much all live instruments except for I did some like drum production, and I played like some synthesizer on it, and I play guitar on it. And then I really wanted like almost like a Thundercat style bass line on it.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Camille that I actually met at Ableton School, this school called Beat Lab Academy, when I did the crash course, she's like a super skilled musician. And so I just sent her the chord charts and I was like, this is the vibe I'm going for. Like play bass to it. I'd love to hear how it sounds. And like she just totally killed it. Like I didn't really have to give her a lot of like
Explanation.
nitpicky stuff. But
Right.
then for like the melody part that I had written for the track, I ended up linking up with this like prolific like one man orchestra guy. His name is Stevie Black. And he was like really into the tune. I found him on this platform called Sound Better. And with him, like I had a way more specific um like notes for him of the melody that I was going for. Like I wanted him to like play his stringed instruments like in correlation with like the melody of the vocals. And so I really like laid all of that out for him. And then gave him like a little wiggle room outside of that. But yeah, so for that, it depends on like I guess the part and like if I have a vision, and sometimes I don't, sometimes I'm like, just go for it. Let's see what you got to do. So it's
Yeah.
been cool, like working with other people. It's been like a good experience so far. And I'm like definitely hoping to do it more. Because just the live sound is um just has so much more to it. Like having, multiple string instruments playing a melody, it just like MIDI can't really accomplish the same thing. Maybe if I bought like $10,000 worth of
Right.
plugins.
Right. Yeah. And even then, it's still ones and zeros at the end of the day. And that's not necessarily a bad thing either. I think some of the coolest music that comes out does a pretty great job of blending live elements with electronic elements and marrying the best of those both worlds.
Mhm. And with like Sweet Nothings, that was kind of like my first crack at like orchestrating like string elements in Ableton.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like a blend of like me playing string stuff on the synthesizer, me taking samples of live recorded stuff, like kind of like the main lick that's like da 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 da. That's like a
Mm-hmm.
Motown string sample from the sample pack, like just on Splice. But
Right.
I took that and then I like added all these other elements, like things that I had written that were supposed to be in the melody of the song for like instrumentation. And so like just kind of like adding all those layers, like it really worked out. And it just like ended up sounding great and like super organic and like real and like dense in like a cool way. But then when I try to do it with this recent demo that I was just talking to you about, like I was like, it's just not hitting the same. So I was like, you know what? Like I'm gonna hire somebody, and I just like luckily really linked up with a super dope guy, and like I'm really amped in this new song. I'm like pretty sick.
That's awesome. So with Sweet Nothings, what have been some, if there were any challenges that came up during the creation process of this song, and how did you navigate around them?
Definitely the biggest difficulty was that like I once I like learned Ableton software, I was kind of like guns a blazing. All right, I'm ready to like get
Mm-hmm.
get this show on the road, you know. But then COVID happened, so that really took the wind out of my sails for a while. And just like, you know, I wasn't signed. I was like brand new artist. I was like pretty new to LA, and like luckily I have a great community network here, and I was able to like make life here make sense even like during COVID times or whatever. But I wasn't sure like what was gonna happen with like the music industry and all that stuff. So I kind of like took a break from music, and I also like had my computer was like pretty much like on its last leg. And so there was like a period of time even where I like didn't even have a laptop. I wasn't able to produce. So I just like had all of these like project files that were just laying dormant, you know, for almost like half a year. And it took a while for me to just kind of get back to a point where I could afford a new laptop that I was able to produce on again. So just like having like lack of access to like proper tools, you know, and just like having to like, you know, shift and like get to a point again where like I have a functioning laptop that I can run like Ableton and a plugin on at the same time, you know.
Crazy.
And
Yeah, what a crazy concept.
yeah, so that was really kind of like one of the bigger challenges. And also just like I can do some mixing and mastering. Like I can mix a track, but once you like add vocals to it, I'm like I don't freaking know what's going on anymore. So also the process of like finding a mixing and mastering engineer, um and just like finally having that mastered track of this song that I wrote, you know, like years prior, such a long process. Um, but it was such a great feeling to have that in the end. And Sweet Nothings was actually, I think, the first song that I had mastered of my music.
Wow.
So
Was that weird to finally hear a song that you've had for 4 years essentially not only finished, but taken to that extra step of, it's one thing to listen to a demo 100 million times and you're like, okay, that's the version. But then when it's mastered, it just adds this sheen to it that
mhm.
at first I feel like, at least for me, it's almost scary because it's like, oh, is this fine? Is this really what it is? Is this how it's going to be? But it also can be
Yeah.
finally relieving. You're like, okay, we're wrapping it with a bow and it's finally done. Like, what were your thoughts when you heard it for the first time mastered?
Yeah, it was super surreal. And I was really happy with how it turned out because also like my mastering engineer, he did let me make notes. And so we did do a few passes. Um, so because of that, you know, I'm really happy with how it sounds. You know, I can always like I have very sensitive ears, so I can like hear very slight little things where I'm like, what is that? Is that tiny,
Mm-hmm.
minuscule
Mm-hmm.
sound? And like I'll like be playing it for my I remember like what after I had it mastered, and like another like Naughty Girl too, when I had it mastered, I'm like playing it for my friends. I'm like, there, that sound, do you hear it? And people are like, I don't even hear what you're hearing, sister. So it's like kind of being like, okay, you just gotta let it, you just gotta let it go at some point, and like
Right.
can't keep spinning the wheels, like I feel like now that I've gone over this humongous learning curve of like, okay, how do I actually get to a final product that actually sounds legitimate that people will want to listen to, that's not just like, me just having fun or whatever, has that like listenable quality to it. Now I feel like I'll be able to like speed up the process a bit more, and like it's definitely my goal to be like releasing like a single per month, a single or video or visual like every like 4 to 6 weeks maybe for like probably the rest of the year, if not longer, and just like keep following that trail until I get a record deal or something.
Yeah.
So we'll
So
see.
if somebody came up to you and said, Roa, I need to know how you get across that humongous gap between a song that I like to listen to on my computer that feels more like a demo to a song that is completely mixed, completely mastered, and ready to go for people to hear, put on playlists. What is the big key ingredient or key ingredients that go into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think even before getting to that demo stage, it's just like spending like countless hours playing music, like studying music, studying other artists and like their compositions and like their ways of sound. Like I would just like listen to my like favorite artists at the time when I was writing that song were like Anderson .Paak and Hiatus Coyote, and I would like listen to their tracks. I would look up the chords. I would look up the lyrics. I would listen to like I would be sitting there with my headphones in, listening to like the bass part, listening to the. So for me, it was really just like dissecting some of my favorite music, like in my own head and in my own process, and trying to like find inspiration from that, and like being like, okay, what makes this final product that I'm listening to that's like accessible to me, like what's making that so potent and amazing, and like how can I take and learn from that. And then really like taking the demo stage to like the final mix and master, like sadly it does take money, and it does take like some connections to people. Like I feel like Sound Better is a really amazing platform for artists that are like trying to find their way with finding that finished product. You can find tons of mixing and mastering engineers on there, and they have catalogs of like stuff that they've done in the past, and can even like submit your demo and be like, hey, I'm looking for a mixing and mastering engineer for this. And then like uh engineers on the platform will see it, and then they'll kind of like be like, hey, I'll do it for this price. This is what I've done
Mm,
before. So that's probably like the biggest tool that I could like offer to like somebody who is like has the same aspirations as me, is like finding those online platforms like soundbetter.com. That's like how you can find mixing and mastering engineers, because I had friends that were like, oh yeah, I'll mix and master it for you, and I'll do it for like pretty cheap, and like yeah, they did like a great job, but like it took them like 4 months, and
damn. Yeah.
whereas if you find somebody online and they're like, really, this is like their side hustle, and they
Right.
they want that, it's gonna take like, at least 100 to a few $100s, depending, even more sometimes, depending on
Sure.
like who you're trying to go with. And, you know, I have I was paying like more for a mastering engineer, mixing and mastering engineer, and then I was like, okay, I need to like I need to lower the price a little bit. I wound up going with somebody else, and honestly, it just didn't sound as good in the end. So it is like a process, and like, I know that some people they like use a mixing and mastering engineer, and then they end up being like, I don't like how this sounds, and using somebody else. But like ultimately, the demo needs to be absolutely sickening. Um,
Yeah.
to be a good final finished product, and like
Right, right.
it's just having that discernment with yourself, and like being able to also like take critique from like the people around you to be like, okay, is this actually like legitimately good, or am I just like kind of stroking my ego here?
Hmm.
It's hard to tell.
That it can be. Yeah. I like that you gave a good mix of very practical advice as well as some, I wouldn't say spiritual, but the idea of listening to your favorite artists who you are trying to take inspiration from and really dissecting why their songs sound good. Why does that bass line hit so hard? Why does the
Mhm.
vocal melody work so well? The chord progressions, things like that. That's something anybody can do at any time of the day and get fired up to make something of their own and steal like an artist. Have you ever heard of that book?
Mm-mm.
It's just a book about like advice for artists and how in general, ideas are recycled a lot, and how, your favorite artists are just taking inspiration from other artists, and
Yeah,
but it's from like a wide pool, so that the thing that they end up making has a little bit of Beatles inspiration, has a little bit of Anderson Paak, has a little bit of whatever, and they're blending all these things, and we can all do
totally,
that. And
totally.
then the practical advice of, yeah, maybe save up some money and get a mastering engineer. If this means a lot to you, then it's worth that investment, and it is an investment. And there's ways to get around it maybe, and find like a free mastering software website or whatever, like Lander. And I did that for like way in the beginning, and it's something. I'm
Mm,
not going to say it's nothing. You can always use it if you want, but at
totally.
the end of the day, uh
Mhm.
you got to choose what is the priority and what you want to make an investment into.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure some mastering engineers are like shaking in their boots with all this AI stuff right now.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
But yeah, totally. It's just like takes money, and it takes time, and takes, you know, being smart, like referencing and studying stuff, but
Hmm.
like, yeah, not like ripping somebody off. So it's like, it's the music industry. It's so fun.
Hmm. What would you say is your favorite part of the creative process, whether that be the writing stage, the recording, the actual mixing, or even releasing it, doing the promo around it?
My favorite stage is definitely just like sitting in my little studio and just like making stuff. Like that moment of like having just like being like deep in the process, and like having a spontaneous afternoon where all of a sudden you go from just like jamming out on the synth to being like, oh snap, this sounds
Hmm.
freaking
Hmm.
cool as heck, and then just like diving in, and then it's like almost like the song just like produces itself because it's just
Sure.
so effortless in that moment. But then also like sometimes I'll like sit down and be trying to like produce something, and like I have to just laugh at myself because I'm like, this sounds like absolute crap, like so definitely like just the producing
Yeah.
aspect, like vocal recording, it feels very like I go to like my friend's studio. He has like a treated room, and it's like I'm like, okay, I'm recording. Like I have my tea, and like
Hmm.
la la
Hmm.
la la la. And, like it's like very kind of like contrived for me, and like I'm such a perfectionist, and like I'm not like a highly trained vocalist by any means. Like I just try my darndest to like make it sound good.
Yeah.
I'm not like out here like singing opera or anything.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that aspect is pretty contrived for me. The marketing aspect is really contrived. Like I definitely love just like the producing part the most, but it has been super fulfilling to actually like finally release and like kind of let go of any expectations and like hopes of like what it could be and just kind of like realizing like, yo, you just gotta like, yeah, put that initial effort in to make sure that it's like actually good. And then you just gotta put it out there and like just keep putting more and more out. Like it's just like how, what you have to do to kind of like keep up in this industry, you know? So it took me a really, really long time to get to the point where now I've released like in the last 2 months, but like now I'm like just gonna keep it consistent. Otherwise, you know, a million other artists are gonna keep releasing their stuff and like people will forget about your track. So
Yeah. That first hump is definitely the hardest one to get over, that first release, because there's so much fear and anxiety that can come out feeling like, oh, this is, especially if you've never done it before, people don't even really know that you're interested in music and making music. It can be really tough to get yourself to a point where you feel comfortable releasing that first track. What would be some advice you'd give to an artist who is either A, struggling to find their voice, and or B, having to put out their first song but being nervous too?
yeah, I'd say you know, the advice varies depending on like what somebody's going for.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is hard to kind of like grasp people's attention. Um, so if somebody just is doing it for themselves for like a hobby, like they just, you know, they feel inspired and they want to put it out, you know, I'd say by all means, just like drop it on SoundCloud, just send it to all your friends and like have fun with it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, you know, I am trying to make this like a very legitimate career for myself. So it was a lot of like just really lining a lot of things up, like shooting visuals, like working my ass off to like have money to shoot the visuals and like getting like, you know, my community around me and like excited and like really just kind of having a very clear vision of like what I saw for the project, like not only like, you know, with just the sound aspect, but what I was like going for visually and just, you know, like lining up, like seeing, just being real with yourself of like, okay, do I have any money to invest in this? And like, if you do, then like do your studying on like what's going on in the industry, like where can I best spend that money and like how can I like make legit, who can I reach out to in my personal network or in somebody's personal network that can give me like real advice. Because if you're gonna like be like find a hire a playlist curator Google search, like
Yeah.
it might not really work out for you because there's a lot of people that are like
Selling pipe dreams.
when I first released my first single, I was like amazed at like how many like radio DJs were hitting me up like, yo, you got big potential, kiddo. Like da da da, like just like ramping me up, being like,
Yeah,
yo,
yeah.
you're gonna like go crazy with it. And like, and then they're like, cool, so airplay is like this and this, like these are my prices, but like you're sickening. And I'm like, how about you be like one of the first radio DJs to play like a self-produced pop artist? Like, how about that's the big flex? Like, why do I have to like, you know, obviously people pay for radio play, but I'm just
Right.
like, and there's just so many people that like want to like dip their hands in the pot and like get, their little 50 to like 200 to whoever knows, like $1,000 or whatever. So just being realistic of like, do I have any money to budget into this? And even if like somebody only has like, $75 or something, they can take that $75 and they can go to a platform like Submit Hub, buy tokens, and then that gives you access to like blasting your stuff out to, tons of blogs and playlist curators and stuff like that. And like, nobody might repost your stuff, and like that's okay. Like you just gotta, it's like rolling the dice and just being like, okay, how much of my money do I really want to gamble with right now?
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
that's pretty much what it is. It's a gamble, like any type of marketing, or you could take that $75 and you could just boost an Instagram post, or if you want to like go crazy, like you could, hire a publicist for like way more money,
That's,
so
dude, publicists make so much money. It's crazy.
yeah.
But yeah, everything you said is true. And there's also ways to advertise and promote your stuff for free that may or may not be as helpful, but you could certainly write your own PR, or look up a press release that is just a standard press release, write your own version of it, send it to some blogs, send it to some websites, and maybe find out if there are any playlisters that you could reach out to just via email. Now, you might get 0 responses back, but if you don't
Mhm.
want to pay money, that's certainly something you can do. And hell, you still might get 0 responses if you do pay money for
Yeah,
Submit Hub. So it's just
totally.
finding ways that make sense for you to be able to make it happen. But sitting back and doing nothing is a guaranteed response for not really having anything happen.
Yeah, for me, some of like the best promotion that I have done for myself is like here in LA, like reaching out to like local venues that I can like get residencies at. Like I have some like long-standing residencies
Yeah.
at a couple of venues like in Chinatown, that, and they're just like, I love their vibe. They have this like really cute aesthetic, very like intimate, dark, like candlelit lounge vibes. One's melody lounge, one's generally is. And as of recently I've been doing more stuff at General Lee's, but it's just like such a cool vibe there. And they, have like a small stipend that they pay me as a promoter, and then I bring in other artists, we do shows together, the shows are free, and like I'm really not making any money off of these shows, but I get like a little bit of like such a small chunk of money to give money to like the other DJs so that they can like cover their expenses of even just like getting to the show. It's like nobody's really making money, but it's a way to like kind of like self promote in this way, um where people can actually come and experience the art. They're not just like, you don't only exist like on Instagram or on SoundCloud or
Right.
something, So I feel like that's like a really big tool that I think if somebody has like the chutzpah and the like vigor to like go out there and like meet the booker for the venue, find a venue that you like, go there, get a cocktail, chat with the bartender, ask them who's booking there, put in the work, just like go and talk to people. That's like how I've gotten most of my stuff, and like sometimes like I'll get way more followers on Instagram after throwing like a really cool show where people are like, posting on their stories and they're tagging me, and it's like this exciting thing, as opposed to like boosting an Instagram post and like I
Sure.
won't get any followers. It's like, oh, I got all these views, but like people are just like, it's like just that authenticity where like somebody's like, oh, somebody just invited me to this show tonight. I didn't know anything about it, but all of a sudden they show up and they're having a great time. They're like, oh, okay, like, well, who throws this thing, you know?
Right.
And it's just like this natural pipeline. And like I've had some people show up at some of my residency shows that just like happen to like pop in because they like that cocktail bar, you know. And then next thing I know, they're like, yo, I was at the last one and I'm at this one again. Like I had to come back because I had such a good time, you know. And for me, that's like such a fun experience to be able to like curate a zone where people can like actually like hang out and like meet new people and like network and like just have fun as a community and not just there's a lot of stuff in LA where you just show up and like it's just like loud and people are just dancing, you know, like
Hmm. Hmm.
just trying to like curate something where people are like actually it's bigger than just like oh just come to this show and like watch me on a stage like no like I'm trying to like create like a whole experience where people like want to stay and hang out and like meet new friends and like create like a cool vibe together and stuff. So that's probably one of the best like promotional tools somebody could do. It's just like just start throwing your own shows and like getting like-minded people together, you know, and then that grows over time, you know.
Yeah. Creating your own community is so accessible now. And everything that you just said is such a great way to do it. And for somebody that is maybe a little less outgoing, it can be tough to do that. But you can start small. You can always start doing house shows, throw something at your house and just invite your friends, have it be, no more than 10 people. And then maybe you start to get more comfortable with that. Those 10 people tell 10 more people that they know. And then
Mm-hmm.
gradually, exponentially, it starts to grow into something that becomes a really cool community, and it can happen almost overnight, even
Mm-hmm.
though it might not actually be overnight, but word spreads fast.
Yeah. And just kind of like it's a long process. Like I've been throwing events um for like probably like the last 5 years. And when I was living in New Orleans, I would be like very over the top with it and be like, let's make this like immersive like art experience. And there's like da da da. And it would just I like went through this crazy learning process of being like, wow, this is incredibly stressful, incredibly
Yeah.
time consuming, and I'm making absolutely no money, you know, or just the heartbreak of like you'll throw a show and like nobody will show up. Even like
Hmm. Hmm.
even your friends won't come, you know? So like it that may happen, you know, but I've kind of just like through years of experience realize like oh what's like the most accessible and realistic for me and accessible for people in my community so that they do want to come out and take the time, you know, like doing these residencies where it's like a free show and it's just like a way to just kind of like get people together and stuff. And I really put the time in. And also just like it was easy for me to like get into the like DJ residency stuff where like, oh, I can like kind of do a renegade performance with like a microphone,
Yeah.
and some dancers and like just make it happen. Uh, because I used to like be in like a string band where we'd be like on stage, like live looping and like that shit was technical. So like being able to
Yeah.
just show up to a spot and be like, here's my USB. Like that it was an easy transition, but I
Yeah.
could see how
Yeah.
for somebody else, like having that first DJ set where there's people around, like can be super nerve-wracking. You just gotta like push through it, and just get to a point where it's comfortable and now it just is just second nature, and I put in like all those times of residencies and like throwing these shows that are like I'm not really making any money, but like I'm curating a free experience. And now like I've kind of like leveled up and now I'm like working with Soho House and I'm going to be able
Oh,
to
cool.
I'm doing my first event at Soho House, the warehouse location in downtown LA, like in the arts district. And
Nice.
now I'm like, I'm actually gonna make money. But it took like, took a while to get to that point. So you just people just have to be dedicated and
Just
just
keep going.
just keep going for no reason, it feels like sometimes.
That is certainly true, but you keep going, you'll get there eventually. And you know what? The journey's pretty fun too.
Yeah, it
Cool. Well,
is.
Roa, that's going to take us over to the last five, where I'll just ask you five quick questions and we'll be done.
Okay.
Number one is in the studio or playing live. Which would you pick?
Um, Probably in the studio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the same. I always say the studio. Number two is what do you think is a perfect album front to back?
Oh my gosh. A
You
perfect
can name a
album.
few.
Ugh, that's like honestly for me like Plastic Beach by the Gorillas. Like
Oh, very
I
cool.
just
Yeah.
I just love how eclectic it was and like all the art and like this whole realm that they created was just so
Yeah.
cool, so immersive, and I just love that.
I've never listened to the whole album, but every time I listen to Welcome to the Plastic Beach, I'm like, dude, this goes so hard. Like this
Yeah,
beat is crazy.
you
Snoop
should
is
listen to the
perfect.
whole album.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Yeah, they have amazing like intro. It's just like it just kind of takes you to this like very surreal universe. They
Hmm.
really transport you there in like a cool way.
Gorillas have been around a long time.
Yeah,
It's
it's
an,
like I don't really like the recent stuff as much anymore, but that album was like so impactful to me as like a
mhm.
young like I don't know, preteen. Was I a teenager? I don't know. Um, just like as a kid, it was just like so fun for me to like kind of dive into their
Yeah.
realm. And they had when they came out with the album, like they had this like online site that you can go and explore the Plastic Beach. So you
Oh,
could like
whoa.
walk around. Like I can't find it online anymore, which like maybe I could find it deep in some Reddit thing or something.
Yeah.
But um it was just so fun for me because like for me as like a kid, I was like life felt very mundane and boring. So having like stuff like that to like transport me elsewhere was like super important.
Totally. Question number three is who is your dream artist or producer to work with?
Probably like honestly, I'd love to work with like Anderson Paak.
Hmm.
Um, I think that would just be like so fun.
That
He's
would be,
just
yeah.
so talented and it's crazy because I actually like randomly met him like the night that I released Sweet Nothings.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, dude, I gotta tell you, and he's like, fuck, keep going for it, kiddo. And I was like, oh god, did I just like come across really corny? But it was cool. He's like, he's a funny, hilarious guy. And so I was just like, you know what, this is cool. I should just take this for what it is.
Yeah. Great smile.
Yeah, yeah, he's just like a hilarious little dude. So yeah, I think that would be super, super fun. And I
That
would
would
just
be
like
awesome.
I think I would like learn a lot, but maybe, who knows?
One of these days. Hey, you
Yeah.
already met him, so it's not out of the cards.
Yeah.
The other person I thought, I always try to think of one or two producers or artists that I think would be a cool fit. And Pharrell Williams was somebody I thought of.
That'd be cool.
I could definitely see just the
Like
way
that.
he gets his
Yeah,
rhythms.
totally. Totally. Yeah, Pharrell would be sick for sure.
Question number four is what's on your musical rotation right now?
My musical rotation is really interesting. I've been listening to a lot of music from the 70s,
Hmm.
especially from Brazil.
Oh,
Um, a lot of 70s Brazilian music. Just
nice.
been going deep down that pipeline, and it's just like
Any recommendations?
So gorgeous. Jose Mauro, I think. Let me see. I'm a very visual person, so I kind of like um don't remember things unless I look at them. Yeah, Jose Mauro is super, super dope.
I'll have to check them
Um,
out.
I've been listening to the Fantastic Planet soundtrack by Alon Goragur. I can't even pronounce these names.
It's a good sign.
But just like really deep, like 70s cuts has been like kind of like my like go-to jam.
You know, I might be pronouncing it wrong. I probably am, but João Bosco.
mm, no, I haven't.
He is
Maybe yeah.
I think he's Brazilian. I'm not sure. But like bossa nova type from the 70s, who a guest of mine, his name is Good Fight. He recommended him to me, and I checked out that album, and it's like, it's just such a feel good album, and it's like such a nice thing to put on and just vibe out to. So I think that's something you'd be into.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm super into stuff like that right now. But then also I'll be like, all right, let's put on some like Miss Nina reggaeton. And it's just like completely different, you know? So it
Yeah.
just depends on the moment, the mood.
Yeah. Cool. Last question here. What is your favorite decade of music and what's the worst?
Mm, I mean, yeah, stemming off what I was just talking about, definitely the 70s for me right now in this
Right now, at
moment
least.
of life. I'm just like, that's my favorite that I've been listening to. Um, and then the worst, I don't know. I feel like there's good and bad music of like every
Of
decade.
course. But if you had to totally just trash one, get it out of here, what's it gonna be?
Trash one, get it out. Oh, it's so hard. It would probably just be me. It would probably be like year seven, the decade of 1720, because like
Right.
that's just like so
Yeah.
like
All those
I love classical music sometimes, but like
uh-huh, uh-huh.
that probably that from I wouldn't even know.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
I just like sometimes I'll just drive around and just only listen to like classical music, you know, and it's just
That's
like
nice.
this it's like this weird like experiment that I put myself through, like when you're just driving down downtown LA and there's just like crazy homeless people everywhere, like God bless their hearts, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's just like run, 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 like it's just like intense, weird. Like, why am I putting myself through this like intense
You're
experience?
like,
But yeah,
what
that like
simulation are we living in right now?
yeah, I don't even know what decade exactly, but definitely I couldn't say anything from like the 20th century or
Yeah, forget
there's
decade,
too much
throw
good
out a
stuff.
whole century. The
Yeah.
entire 1800s. Get it out of here. We don't want it.
Yeah, something like that. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Sweet. Well, Roa, hey, thank you for joining me for the episode of On
hmm
That Note. Everybody needs to go listen to Sweet Nothings right now. Just total bop. Do you have any gigs coming up you want to promote?
I have my first curatorial debut at Soho Warehouse, March 17th.
Cool.
And I believe that the RSVP is pretty much closed right now, but if anybody happens to be living in LA and is a Soho member, come on down.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, everybody come on down to Soho House, March 17th. Roa, thank you again for joining me. It was a blast.
Bye.
All
Thank
right.
you so
See
much.
ya.
Have a good day.
You too.
Dove can't fly far if it doesn't have sights.
Thank you again for joining me for another episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling.
If you haven't yet, please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, and you can even leave a comment down below to let me know who you're listening to. On that note, I'll see you guys next time.
If you're really trying to get close to me, so let's go.